First of all, you have a leaflet that invites you to become a member of the national chapter of ISUP Brazil. There are many benefits associated with becoming a member, like international articles and courses. Take a look at it. It's inside of your bag. I would like to thank the team from Unify. They are broadcasting the event live. And as I said yesterday, we have English and Portuguese channels. 35 countries from different chapters of ISIP are present, are taking part of our event. I'm sure that Chun, who is in the Philippines, is sleeping right now, but I'm sure he's going to watch this later on. And please visit our YouTube page, Espírito Free Mind. Share the link in your social networks so that we are able to help information gets more reach more people. Now we are going to start talking about vapes, which are wove in sheep's clothing. Well, let's get started. Our panel is Electronic Cigarette Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, Myths and Truths about Electronic Smoking Devices. I would like to invite our dear moderator, Dr. Sandra Marques. Sandra, please take a seat. Now, as a moderator, you can choose where you feel more comfortable to stay. I would also like to invite Dr. Paulo Corrêa, a round of applause. And I would also like to invite our dear friend, Dr. Guilherme Ataíde Ribeiro Franco. Please take a seat at over there. And did you get your headsets for simultaneous interpretation? If you don't speak English, go and get the headset, because we are going to have an international guest. It's Dr. Bolaola. He's from Nigeria, Africa. He's my son. He is as if he were my son. So we forgot to inform you to get your headsets before. So Dr. Sandra is State Coordinator of the National Tobacco and Control Program. She is the State Coordinator of the National Tobacco Control Program. Dr. Paulo Corrêa, he is an expert in tobacco control with certification in a degree of excellence granted by the Pan American Health Organization, and he is the coordinator of the Pneumologic Association. Dr. Guilherme Ataíde Ribeiro Franco, he's a prosecutor in Campinas who specializes in chemical dependence at Unifesp, and he is a member of ABAD. He was a member of GTIDA, which is a special project of the Public Ministry of the State of São Paulo. Professor Bala is a psychiatrist professor specializing in child's and teenagers' mental care. And he is a global trainer. He is a coordinator in Nigeria in a program to reduce drug use, and he, apart from working in these projects, he is listed on Frontier as an expert in mental health and depression. Sandra, now I'm going to give you the microphone so that you can moderate our panel. Thank you very much, Paulo. So we changed, we organized things over here with regards to our panel. I'm going to share with you my PowerPoint presentation that describes what vapes are, and then we have Dr. Bala and Dr. Ataide. Thank you very much. I think I'm going to stand up. Well, I have to say that tobacco kills half of its users, 200 million a year. It's the first avoidable death cause in the world. If we think about passive smoking, especially after COVID, almost 80% of the 1 billion people of smokers, they live in low-income countries, and this is an important social determinator, especially when it comes to how we address users. It is a chronic disorder that must be treated. It is a pediatric illness. In Brazil, it starts from 14 with two teenagers who are 14 years old. It's important for us to understand that nicotine causes chemical dependency. 30% of the people who try cigarettes for the first time become dependent, which is very different from all of the other drugs. It's the most addictive drug. We have a convention that was signed by 192 countries, including the European Union. We use the measures that were described in this document to control tobacco in Brazil. It is connected to many different areas, not only the healthcare sector, the federal revenue, taxes, Tabacos Brazil applies a minimum price policy. Cigarettes that cost lower than R$ 5 are considered illegal. And we also have a protocol to face illegal market. São Paulo was a pioneer state to forbid cigarettes. São Paulo established a policy of care of passive smokers. The tobacco industry, they don't talk about passive tobacco use, and this is something that is really serious. We also are going to talk about workers' health care, and regulation is done by Anvisa, the National Sanitation National Health Surveillance Agency, and labeling, Anvisa regulates it. We have in the
Some countries have already established 100% of warnings around cigarette packaging. In Brazil, we couldn't do this yet because manufacturers keep filing appeals and going to court. In terms of education and awareness raising, we have some programs for schools, some education-oriented programs that are very important in this country. We have this project led by Dr. Ana Cecilia. She has a pioneering project with schools upstate São Paulo. Advertising and promotions, they cannot sponsor music festivals anymore. Advertising is very limited, but now we have the problem with e-cigarettes or vapes. We can't forget that e-cigarettes or vapes are cigarettes. We cannot forget that, and that's why the name of this session is A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing. So sponsoring is very limited these days, but there's the illegal market. We have a protocol, a plan to counter that, but it's a problem. We have counterfeit cigarettes coming from Paraguay. So it is a complex market, and it involves smuggling, firearms, smuggling of or drug trafficking, firearm trafficking, cigarette trafficking. Tobacco is also a problem at the farm level because it's a plantation, so it goes against sustainable development. It's a problem for nature conservation, but still it's produced by some smallholders. So we have incentive programs for the smallholders to start growing other crops. Another initiative was Covitel, which is because the challenge we have is that 1 out of 5 teenagers has already tried vapes or e-cigarettes. So it's very important to keep that in mind. Even though smoking has, the prevalence of smoking has decreased, we have new challenges. There's also the epidemics of hookahs or shishas. There are many modalities of that. There are even some risks associated with the sharing of the hookahs. Like infectious diseases, the flu, lip herpes, COVID-19, of course. Yes, COVID-19. Let's not forget it. And I also work with the health surveillance department in the state here. And we have the problem with the monkeypox, and that which can also be transmitted by this kind of shared device. This is a publication we made on addiction, talking about oral health and the use of nargile or hookah or shisha, whatever you want to call it. And what do we know about e-cigarettes? E-cigarettes are regulated in Brazil. We passed the first regulation in 2009. Joint Board Resolution 46 regulated it banned the marketing, imports, and manufacturing of any kind of e-cigarette or vape. But then you may say, you can buy it online, you can buy it on at the corner shop. So it's important to keep in mind that even though we have this resolution, even though we have this legal framework banning e-cigarettes, we still have to enforce the law. The society must be committed to this enforcement so that the ban can actually be applied and be valid. We have the Covitel inquiry. It's for non-transmissible infectious diseases. It talks about the trial of vapes in adolescence. It raises some red flags, and it shows us that the landscape's changing. It's becoming normal or natural again. Smoking is becoming a natural thing again because of e-cigarettes, so we have to take action to prevent that from happening. There are 4 generations of e-cigarettes. The first of which is disposable and non-rechargeable, very similar to regular cigarettes, with or without nicotine. The second generation is already rechargeable with pre-filled cartridges that can be replaced, some with some regulation, number of puffs, and or individually you can adjust the amount of nicotine you're going to inhale, and it's very hard for Anvisa, Brazil's health surveillance agency. It's hard to regulate something that can actually be regulated by the users, because how can you regulate a product like that if the smoker can add whatever substance he or she wants to it? The third generation is rechargeable. Also, it has like a tank or a reservoir where you can fill it with liquid marijuana or nicotine. So it's also important to highlight that these devices increase the association between nicotine or tobacco and other substances like marijuana. In other words, again, this there's and that's problematic in many ways. It's very controversial, and the effects can already be felt in society. And the fourth generation is a rechargeable pod that looks like that, like the photo. So there are many forms and many designs of vapes, e-cigarettes, and many of them are particularly appealing to teenagers and children. They're very colorful, with very attractive design, beautiful to the eyes of the young, and always with this advertising, this communication directed at the young. In this new season, e-cigarettes are purportedly for smokers who want to quit but can't. It is also purportedly for adult use. They say that e-cigarettes do not generate passive smoking, that it's only steam, water steam, that e-cigarettes only produce water steam, and that e-cigarettes reduces damage, and it's a way of, it's less harmful. It's theoretically less harmful. These are the claims, right? These are the claims. But what are the facts? Well, with e-cigarettes, we don't have combustion, we don't have tar, and we don't have carbon monoxide. But then again, that's what they mean by damage reduction. But then steam is produced by propylene glycol and ethylene glycol, glycerol. Propylene glycol and glycerol are not approved for inhalation. They can cause pulmonary damage, pulmonary lesions. And ethylene glycol is explosive and teratogenic. The first e-cigarettes in the U.S. would explode and cause very bad accidents, including psychiatric emergencies, because people would smoke all kinds of things. So these are products. They are designed to deliver nicotine to your blood in the form of aerosol, of steam again. Nicotine. There are three main types of nicotine. As we know, nicotine, and I learned this from a paper by Dr. Stella Martins, and with Bloomberg and Pajo, and this publication talks about the harms that can be caused by nicotine. There's the free-base nicotine, which is used with the addition of ammonia. It causes an immediate feeling of pleasure and increases chemical dependency. It's the nicotine we find in regular cigarettes. The nicotine salts, these are found in unprocessed tobacco leaves. It's an association with benzoic acid. It's found in vapes and in heated tobacco products. We're going to talk about that later. We're going to get a sneak peek of that. It reduces the roughness of high concentrations of nicotine, and also delivers this nicotine in a smoother, faster way, because these products already have a very high content of nicotine, so it would be harder to actually inhale that. And there's synthetic nicotine. It's synthesized in laboratories, and it's found in e-cigarettes and snus, like Paulo said, and medications for nicotine replacement therapy. Snus are they look like tea bags. They're widely used in Europe. These snus, they're widely used in Europe, and apparently they reduce the damage of inhaled or smoked nicotine. It's a different way of consuming nicotine, but still. And since the 1960s, manufacturers have been trying to synthesize nicotine. First studies on e-cigarettes date back to the 1960s. And why is that? Because they knew that one day actual cigarettes would be banned. And so they anticipated this ban, and they are decades ahead of us. They are decades ahead of us in terms of design, strategy, marketing, product development. And then you may say, oh, it's just nicotine. Don't be a bore. Don't be annoying. Stop being a pain. But then nicotine can cause cardiovascular diseases, respiratory diseases, atherosclerosis, a number of other conditions. It can even affect our mental health. Every time there's a reduction in the consumption of tobacco, we reduce anxiety rates, depression rates, anxiety disorders. All these mental conditions can improve once you stop taking nicotine, or once you reduce your dependency. So we have to understand that nicotine plays an important role, and even though it's normalized, even though it's considered natural, nicotine is one of the most addictive drugs and one of the most dangerous in this sense, because for many years smoking was a normal thing. We heard Dr. Prochaska the other day. She talked about that. And in mental health, nicotine was even prescribed in the beginning. The manufacturers use, or mental health services used nicotine to, or encouraged the consumption of nicotine to see how it worked in our brain. And then, and the behavior is accepted in social places. It's socially accepted, because if you smoke, you know how it feels, but it doesn't really promote any major behavioral change like some other drugs. So it's socially accepted, right? I'm gonna skip this. I don't want to be repetitive. Paulo is gonna talk about this. E-cigarettes also have some important metals like iron, aluminum, and nickel. They all can cause lungs fibrosis. Group 1 at IARC, which is this rating for cancer, lung cancer, sinus cancer, short-term damage. Short-term damage, respiratory, cardiovascular, mutagenic effects. There are countless studies saying that smoking grandparents have grandchildren with mutations, and they're also more prone to smoking. Carcinogenic effects. The e-cigarettes increase the likelihood of smoking regular cigarettes fourfold. So maybe you can, but the problem is starting with e-cigarettes and then migrating to traditional cigarettes, and then the feeling is not more effective than the nicotine replacement therapy, because that's the claim, right? When they try to promote e-cigarettes, they say that they have been designed to treat smokers and to help smokers quit smoking. You may also hear that vapes only produce steam, but that's not true. They have the super nicotine, which is nicotine plus benzoic acid, propylene glycol, glycerol, ethylene glycol, acrolein, formaldehyde. These are substances that can be widely found in e-cigarettes today. I'm not going to give you the numbers right now. I'm going to leave that for Paulo. And you may say that e-cigarettes do not generate passive vapors, but there are already studies talking about the passive smoking of e-cigarettes, that steam or that smoke that vapes produce. It also creates the passive smokers, like regular cigarettes, right? Studies have already shown the environmental impact of that also. And the main problem with these devices, like, is the additives and the other substances that can be smoked through them. So there's aromas, flavors like mint, clover. These things make these products more flavorings, artificial flavorings, or natural flavorings that make these products more appealing to children. So we have the Brazilian Parliament is discussing this ban, but they haven't reached a conclusion yet. So, well, and if that was not enough, now we have what they call Juul, which is the fourth generation of electronic cigarettes. It's a pod with the so-called super nicotine. It conceals the taste of nicotine and has a very high content of benzoic acid. E-cigarettes have from 0.2 to 2 milligrams per milliliters, and in Juul, 44.8 milligrams per milliliter. So, chemical dependency occurs much more quickly with Juul. The risk is that the early cigarettes had about 2.4% nicotine. Juul is coming to the market with 5% content of nicotine, and competitors deliver up to 7% of nicotine. It's a fake feeling of security because Juul 3%, for example, has 35 milligrams of nicotine. If we consider that a traditional pack of cigarettes is regular cigarettes, has 1 milligram of nicotine per cigarette. That's what's claimed by the manufacturers. We can never really trust them, right? And but anyway, a pack of cigarettes has 20 milligrams, and one pod of Juul at 3% is almost almost 2 packs of cigarette, and the 5% Juul equals almost 3 packs of cigarettes. So it's a lot. A pod of Juul through 200 puffs. So this is a challenge for you. Find 5 e-cigarettes here, because sometimes you're home and your teenage son comes home, and then you see his things there, and some of them really look like pens or pencils. You see, but this one looks like a mechanic pencil. This is another pod, a Juul. This is a vape. This is also another design. It's also used for nicotine. It looks like a candy wrapping for me. And this one looks like a flash drive, a USB drive. So it's important to stay alert and to pay attention to these devices. This is very challenging for schools. Schools are struggling with this kind of product. Children that go to school all the time, to go to the bathroom all the time, that they ask to go to the bathroom all the time. Children are selling this and buying this in schools among themselves. So we have to warn parents about the risks of vapes, because some e-cigarette pods also can be used for the consumption of THC, not only nicotine. In 2019, we came up with the idea of the epidemics. So evaluated some signs and symptoms among American kids. Juul became more and more popular, and then the Americans started to identify many problems with like chillings, leukocytosis, coughing, weight loss, headache, severe headache like migraine. And the problem is that we see many celebrities and famous singers using vapes, and that also helps spread the word. Young people are influenced by that, of course, but still, we have no idea of the long-term damage that can be caused by these devices. Because of that, the United States recently, or they recently had 27,000 young people registered for an anti-smoking treatment. They had since 2020 they recorded 127 cases of seizures, 68 deaths caused by the use of vapes, and cases of EVALI in 14 countries. It's very similar to what we call the smoked glass or effect. It's the smoked glass effect or the EVALI. Acetate vitamin, first they thought that acetate or THC were the main causes of EVALI. And I think my screen is frozen. I'm sorry. Let me try and change the slide. These are two more studies from last year talking about the damage to the oral mucosa and the challenges that dentists will face in the future. So there will be changes in the cells of the oral mucosa, which shows the potential damage that can be caused by these devices. I also brought this IQOS, heat not burn, heated tobacco, not burn tobacco. It also delivers nicotine with the excuse of reducing damage, of mitigating damage. That's a strong claim for e-cigarettes and these new devices. They have this ceramic or platinum or gold, and the claim is that the temperature stays around 300 Celsius, which means half or much less than the regular temperature of regular cigarettes, regular combustion processes. So this purportedly only heats the tobacco, but what studies have already shown is that there is some level of combustion. It is carbonized, at some calcinated at some point, and you end up inhaling that. And if you inhale that, It's like smoking, and depending on how much you inhale, you may even need respiratory support. So this is, you can see it's carbonized because of a process called pyrolysis. If there's pyrolysis, there's carbonization. Therefore, it's incomplete combustion, but it is combustion, and therefore it releases the same substances that regular smoking does. We know there are hundreds of products in cigarettes, and this secondhand smoking is pretty much the same. It also creates the same problems. IQOS also has the claim of reducing damage. Philip Morris itself talks about the reduction in the number of chemicals, but what we see in practice is that most chemical substances that can be found there are group 1 IARC, so they are carcinogenic for humans. There are no safe levels and a clear causal relationship between these substances and diseases and cancer, just like regular cigarettes. So if we were to compare them, there are no real benefits for your health. Research has shown that they deliver nicotine even faster than traditional cigarettes, so they are even more dangerous for chemical dependency. They may also cause damage to your liver. The Royal College has also published a study saying that the supply of nicotine of these devices, the nicotine supplied by these devices is free of the harmful elements of the smoke, but that nicotine causes damage to the vascular endothelium. The claim that nicotine is a harmless substance cannot be made. Nicotine is not harmless. It is harmful, especially to the vascular endothelium. This is widely accepted, included or especially with e-cigarettes. Smoking is the #1 cause of preventable deaths and impairment in the world, and it also together with social inequality. And you know, today in Africa, Dr. Bola may confirm that people still smoke a lot in Africa and in Latin America, just the same. And the industry, the manufacturers play an important role in that. So smoking is associated with poverty. So when we think about the Sustainable Development Goals, we also have to think about eradicating this culture of poverty. So people use part of their monthly income to buy cigarettes, to buy tobacco, which is a big problem in developing countries and in low-income populations. E-cigarettes seem to be effective when used as they say they're useful to help, or they can be used to help you quit smoking. Not true. Not very long ago, the Royal College said that manufacturers used e-cigarettes as a quit smoking aid, but then over time this was countered and questioned by studies because those people they changed names to former smoker and then ex-smoker, and now we say like, oh, ex-smokers do not smoke cigarettes anymore, but they smoke e-cigarettes. They're still dependent. Their addiction to nicotine remains, especially because they continue to smoke, but they smoke e-cigarettes. They're still addicted to nicotine, and there's still damage associated with that. It favors the migration from regular cigarettes to liquid nicotine devices. So it is not as effective as manufacturers say because it only replaces, e-cigarettes only replace regular cigarettes in many cases, but the addiction remains. It's not safer than the nicotine replacement therapy. That's important to keep in mind. And we also have to alert people about the risks of initiation, relapse, dual use, discouragement to quit, and the renormalization or naturalization of smoking. Because again, there has been an increase in the number of smokers. For many years, we achieved a decrease in this number. Next year, we're going to have a big survey over the phone to assess that. but there's been an increase. Recently, we have to we must increase the prices of tobacco products. The tobacco prices, cigarette prices, have been pretty steady since 2017, and that's a problem. You have to increase prices to discourage access. And during the pandemic, many delivery apps like Rappi, iFood, popular delivery apps, also sell cigarettes illegally online through apps. Anyone can buy cigarettes, even e-cigarettes. There was even a big news story on TV the other day, because today we have protocols and there are therapeutic guidelines in the national smoking program, or in the national smoking control program, and again, all our efforts are undermined by this type of online trade. E-cigarettes are not regulated yet. Some users have more severe cravings. These products are extremely addictive, and managing these users will be even more complicated even with the medications we have today, more complicated than smokers of regular cigarettes. Social media, again, big challenge. In the United States, there are already some studies talking about that. We are running a pilot project here in the state of São Paulo for residential environments. In the United States, they already measure the environmental pollution caused by smoking in condos, precisely because they want to measure the impact on the health of non-smokers. So again, after COVID, we became more aware of the notion of collective health, and smoking is a problem. And during COVID, your right to smoke ends when it starts to impact my health, and we have to bear that in mind as well. Recently, we also had a training program for the passive smoking of pets, house pets. So we trained veterinarians, vets, for this approach to raise awareness of pet owners. Pets also die because of passive smoking. That's a problem. Humans causing damage to animals, that's just cruel. And we usually say that animals can be vectors of diseases to us, but we can make them sick as well. We have to keep that in mind. And there's also damage to the environment, right? Since the monoculture, the plantations of tobacco, problems to groundwater, to the use of pesticides, intensive farming, the green tobacco disease for those who actually plant, for tobacco farmers. So we're poisoning our planet. It also means less smoking, means less plastic with the cigarette butts, the incorrect disposal, recycling. Tobacco control projects work with everything, including the recycling of cigarette butts. And with that, I close my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
I'm sorry for giving you such a long introduction, but it was important for you to understand what e-cigarettes are. So, Dr. Paulo is a pneumologist, and he's the president of the Anti-Tobacco Commission in Brazil. Good morning, Sandra. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure being here with you. Então, here basically it says that I am a nerd. I hope you have fun in the next 20 minutes. I am the coordinator of a project that prevents young people from start smoking. So we have a huge synonemia that affects people to understand. We call them ants. Americans use personal vapes or and in Spanish-speaking countries, they call it Sistemas Eletrônicos de Administración de Nicotina. Here is to give you an idea. Many people who started using e-cigarettes started with the following statement against the huge tobacco industry. I'm not gonna give them money. So if there's a TV series called Broken on Netflix. So, there's an episode that is called Big Vape. Watch it. It's gonna tell the story of Ju in 2014. This was presentation done by the major tobacco producers. They had already bought all of the home e-tobacco producing companies. And in 2019, the sales of e-cigarettes achieved the same amount of sales as that of the traditional cigarettes. And Dr. Sandra Marques helped me a lot. She explained to you the different generations of e-cigarettes. This one is called Suorin. It equals 90 cigars. It's a huge dose of nicotine. And I'm gonna start playing with you. Let's explore myths. This is a movie. The first myth of the electronic cigarette is that, oh, it has no chemical ingredients. And then Angelina Jolie and Johnny Depp are on a train to Venice. So let's start watching. Just click on it. Desculpa. Por quê? Se incomoda de eu fumar, não é um cigarro real, é eletrônico. Ela...
Smoke is water vapor. Yeah, water. LED light. Bom, são...
So it's not just water, steam, okay? Here's Catherine Hagel, and she did the same as Johnny Depp. She smoked the e-cigarette, and Letterman asked, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "No, this is just water, steam, and I'm just, it's harmful." And on the internet, this information is widely spread. They say, oh, it's just water, steam. It does not have the 4,000 chemical substances. And here, you can have a dimension of when we started to understand what are the chemical ingredients. So this is from 2014. So they discovered that there were at least 10 chemical substances. In 2019, in this paper, they said it's at least 80 ingredients. And as time went by, check the list of chemical substances. It just increases. And why it took us a long time to understand how harmful it was, because researchers, when they were conducting studies, they looked for traditional substances that we find in regular cigarettes and on e-cigarettes, it's a different chemical mean, and it's necessary to use a different type of strategy to discover what are the ingredients. This is another article. It was published in 2021. It's a non-directed analysis. What is this about? I am not going to look for the substances that are present in regular cigarettes. I am going to try and find what types of substances were there. So they studied using chromatography and advanced techniques to discover chemical fingerprints. So they took 4 popular brands, Juice, Blue, Me Salt. And what did they do? You know, the small dots are the chemical substance present in the cigarettes. Each of those dots are the chemical substances. Those products were tobacco flavored, okay? So we didn't expect them to have caffeine. We drink coffee to stay awake. We understand the consequences of intaking coffee through our mouths, but we don't know what the intake of inhaled caffeine will cause to us. Another interesting aspect of this study is the presence of more than 2,000 chemical products. So if you are buying products from big vapes and big tobacco, you are exposing yourself to a huge number of chemical substances. So now I'm gonna show you nanoparticles. Before, it used to be said that cardiovascular risk was related to carbon monoxide. And, you know, nanoparticles are substances that are 1,000,000 times thinner than hair. So when we increase the amount of nicotine in like juice, cigarette, you have an increase in the amount of nanoparticles, and they are not inert, they are active biologically speaking. What do nanoparticles do? Acute cardiovascular risk, strokes. So they produce a inflammatory state in our body. Scientists studied something that is called curved dose response. So a small increase in nanoparticles promotes a huge increase in cardiovascular risks. So as you can see, the amount of nanoparticles is huge, so there's a huge cardiovascular risk. So e-cigarettes are not good. So this is myth number 1. We have conventional cigarettes. It has more than 7,000 chemical substances, and now you know that e-cigarettes have more than 2,000 substances. We're gonna tell Mr. Bolo that in Brazil we have a party in June. You know, there's this song where they say, "Oh, it's gonna rain," and "Oh no, it's a lawn." So I'm gonna say, so he said, "Look, check the industry," and it's a lie. Another thing that we did is differentiating vaporizing and smoking. The industry is appealing here, saying, "Oh, e-cigarettes are health, they don't affect the environment, so on and so forth." We know that there is combustion in products like this, as Dr. Sandra showed us. And why is that? If I am able to detect products, combusted products, it seems that combustion has taken place. Another thing the industry does is associating it with health. It's a false health plead. That they're saying no smokers cough. You see, in the 1930s, the advertisement was the same. Toasting removes dangerous irritations that cause coughs. They remember the study that was published in last October, that seminal work. This shows the substances that we have in electronic cigarettes, and when we change in the square, we have hydrocarbons, and they are the results. They are resulting from combustion. So, is there a distinction in smoking and vaping? No. The third myth is, it's a treatment to help people quit smoking. This is an absurd, okay? So we feel like killing the industry. See, there's an air of authority here. He was a 27-year smoker, and thanks to e-cigarettes, he stopped smoking. And if you are tired of being misled by bad advertisement, use vapes. This is a switch strategy. All of you who work with tobacco know about this. Those who are sick, you know, when you stop smoking, your levels of oxygen increase, and here they're saying when you switch to vape, it increases your oxygen levels, so on and so forth. This is the same information, but in a Brazilian website. You may take pictures if you want. In the US, it's even more unbelievable because drugstores sell e-cigarettes. You see, next to the to medication, you find vaping products. And then myth number 3: the industry says that it's a treatment to stop smoking. They're lying. E-cigarettes are cigarettes. They're not treatments to help people quit smoking. This is the Chinese gentleman who invented the e-cigarette. He said that he invented it because he wanted to stop smoke conventional cigarettes because it had 7,000 substances. He's still alive. He sold his company to Imperial Tobacco, an UK company, and he's alive. He says that he keeps on smoking conventional cigarettes. Dr. Sandra just shared this with you. This is a recent paper. It shows that people who have never smoked are if they have never smoked and they smoke cigarettes for the first time, they will have 30% more chance of becoming addicted. And myth number 4: those who start smoking vapes will not switch to traditional cigarettes. It's a lie. So early tobacco is associated to heavy daily consumption, longer addiction, and greater dependency on nicotine. This study showed something really serious. People who started smoking with less than 13 years old, it's 2 times more difficult for them to quit smoking. So you see, the devices Sandra showed are so beautiful, colorful. Some of them look like lipsticks. So it's extremely concerning. This is another study showing that the use of e-devices at the beginning of teenagerhood increases the likelihood of using alcohol and marijuana. Because once you learn how to smoke, you start smoking other things. And then this is myth number 5, that vaping does not produce secondhand smoke. Smoke Anywhere is the brand of the e-cigarettes. So they say, oh, you can smoke anywhere. And on the left, it's saying that you will be able to smoke whenever and wherever you can. So the advertisement is saying smoke where smoking is forbidden. So 85% of the smoke comes out of the cigarette. Up until Fumar 2022, you thought that the aerosol produced by vapes wasn't that harmful. But you learned that it is harmful. We have volatile organic composts and other ingredients. So the industry says that there's no passive smoke, and is it true? No, it's false. And here you can see a vape fan. They are they produce more vapor. It's how come you will look at this type of smoke and think that it's not harmful? Look, this is a vape fest in Ireland, and it's a closed environment. There are children there being exposed to passive smoke. And here you're going to see that she is in a car smoking 3 e-cigarettes. So this is what they do. Myth number 6. This is from Stanford University. It explains about third-hand smoking. When people use conventional cigarettes or e-cigarettes, the substances are deposited on top of furniture. You see, babies are exposed, pets are exposed. So, your child is there, and when they're playing with things, they will get contact with chemical substances. So vaping does not produce that much smoke. Is it true or false? False. And then restrictions in non-smoking places have to be applied to vaping as well. So our conclusions are: it's not just only water, steam, vapor. It has almost 2,000 chemical ingredients. The smoking vape is a cigarette, and people who have never smoked and smoke e-cigarette increases threefold the likelihood of turning people into smokers. And then we do have second-hand smoke and third-hand smoking. And e-cigarettes are not good to help people stop smoking conventional cigarettes. So do remember that there is combustion in e-cigarettes, therefore it has chemical substances. Thank you, Paulo. Wow, you're very excited this early in the morning. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to have Dr. Bola. Please, the floor is yours. Would you please introduce yourself, please?
I'd like to introduce myself as the son of Papa Paulo Martelli. He discovered me some times ago and encouraged me to visit home, Brazil. So this is my very first time in Brazil. And I know that long, long ago,
Mas ele me convidou há muito tempo e há muito tempo ele me contou que muita gente da África Ocidental vinha para cá participar dos eventos da Free Mind. Então a gente sempre se falou e recentemente a gente conversou para organizar minha vinda.
I work as a clinician in Lagos State. There is also Lagos in Portugal. And I am happy to be here to share with you some of the experiences that I've gone through in my work as a researcher. So here am I here. I went from Lagos to Doha. That's 7 hours. Then from Doha to Sao Paulo, 14 hours. But why didn't I just go from Lagos to Sao Paulo? I think this is what we are trying to talk about. We want to stop the problems of cigarette, but why do we have to go through e-cigarette to solve the problems of cigarette? And the problem really is that the people who want to make money, they've understood us. They understand the science of associating the good behaviors that we want with the things that they want to use to make money. For instance, we breathe. And smoking is something similar to breathing. It's associated with survival. So it's a difficult thing to break. They associate cigarette smoking with chocolate for kids. Kids like chocolate. So when you pair chocolate with smoking, definitely they would do it. And they make money. They associate smoking with success. Thank you. I decided to be here because 2 people went there. I want to stay with my friend too. So they associate smoking with of the combustible cigarette with replacement, a better replacement. And so it appears to us that I'm behaving better if I don't do the combustible cigarette. So this is the key to understanding how they are playing with our minds. These people, sometimes we see them as preachers. Then you go to the church or to any religious organization, then you see the priest telling you, don't do this, don't do that, and then you see them in their corners doing it. So I find some scientists who are good authors in addiction, they also smoke. So what messages are we giving? So these are some of the things that I want to talk about. So they've conditioned our lives to see that even though the combustible cigarette will be removed, but you need to accept something about it, which is now the e-cigarette. So the title really is up, The Wolf in Sheep's Clothing. But then, a bit about Nigeria and West Africa. We have over 200 million people, so it's a good place to market e-cigarette. You want to make billions of money and buy ships, yachts, and you can even buy football teams. But then, a lot of us in Nigeria live in extreme poverty. And when you are poor, you still want to have some happiness. So once in a while, you don't make money, and if you have some money, the best thing is that let me do like the rich people. And the adverts are there. Smoking e-cigarettes by rich people. So we do that just to go beyond poverty line once in a while. But we don't know that we are just being trapped. And one of the principles that my father, Paulo, said this morning, it's love. Love actually breaks all boundaries. But in the advertisement of those who are canvassing for e-cigarettes, e-cigarette causes a lot of harm. Are they actually preaching love? There is an ethical principle that is utilitarianism, which says what you do things is for the greater good of all. And that is what the two previous speakers have been talking about. So, this is Nigeria, and in Africa, and I think Brazil is somewhere here. We both like footballs, and then we share a lot, even when it comes to this problem. So, you see that a lot of youths in the community, 20.9%, that's 1 out of every 5 youths suffers from the burden of problems. And when we grow up like that, the future of a society is what? It's wrecked in a way. And I see that a lot of youths also here are buying into that through the false associations that we have. People in secondary schools, about 20 to 40% have problems, mental health problems. And so the future, they cannot have the good education. So how do we reverse this process? This is the burden of problems. We have cannabis, we have opiates, we have cocaine. But then, like I tell people, birds of a feather flock together. So if we try to say this is the most common problem in Nigeria, it's only cannabis we will address, then e-cigarettes will escape. We need to address all as one. That's my message. So this is just the e-problems, e-cigarette problems in Nigeria. A lot of youths are aware of it because there is no regulation of advert. And they associate with survivor, breathing. They associate with different flavors. If you want good perfume, like when I was in the university, someone came to my room and it was smelling real nice. And I said, wow, you smell nice. He said, I smoke tobacco. I said, okay, let me test it so that I can smell nice. And you could see how social processes can actually trap you into this. So what we need to do is to understand the social processes, even the social processes of the tobacco industries, in order to be able to overcome them. Like it happened in Matrix. I don't know whether you watched Matrix. The guy had to understand the enemy and consumed him. But are we doing that? We have to think about it seriously. So, what are the problems? The appeal of flavors, social influences, marketing. Then a lot of people think that e-cigarettes have less harm. He has talked about it, so I don't need to repeat it. But then how do we go about it? In Brazil and in Nigeria, we actually adopt the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. But the problem is this. We will adopt, but we don't contextualize what we adopt. We don't put our culture into it. We will make laws, ban it, but then when we are making the laws, we don't also make the consideration of the budget for the implementation. And then we say implementation is poor. Why are you making laws when you don't have budget for implementation? Why do you have implementation unbudgeted for, and there is also no monitoring and evaluation of the implementation process? You cannot hold anybody accountable. That's a problem that we both share. So, I look at the settings for our youths. Where do they spend most of their time? In schools, and sometimes with our parents. And research has found out that if parents disapprove of something, the likelihood that the child won't go into it is also very high. But in Nigeria, a lot, particularly in big cities, most parents don't stay at home. They rush out to work, and the children don't have any monitoring, no guidance, except YouTube, Google, where you have everything. Instagram, TikTok. And these are fashionable things where people learn these things. And then, how many people read articles? How many of you read articles? You know, my brother here is giving articles. How many of us read articles? And so that gap between the articles that we publish and the public that do not see it, the tobacco industries play on those gaps and make quick money out of us. So we need to start to think of how do we address this problem. Well, I found some programs, but these programs are divided into three: prevention programs, the cessation programs, and alternative to suspension. But the thing is this: what works for tobacco may not work for e-cigarette. So we need to start to understudy the dynamics of e-cigarette. Because if we don't, we are going to fail. And we will mortgage our future. Because these children are growing every day. So we need to be very effective. We need to have the political will. We need to have the funding. I listened to the government here 2 days ago. But my impression is that governments lie. We need to hold the government accountable. So we need to do that. So what are some of the ways we can? We need to apply ourselves to understanding the factors that can bring lifestyle changes. Lifestyle changes. And these are some of these, well, it's brought by Western world, but we need to understand ourselves. We need to hone these theories. The Brazilian theory of planned behavior, the Nigerian theory of planned behavior, the Brazilian theory of motivational interview, the Nigerian theory of motivational interview. Until we do that, we are not going to make some successes. Well, that's just me being a preacher looking into the future. I don't know, but we really have to think about it. So, what are the major things we need to address? How do we remove the flavors? How do we allow our children to understand that you can get this flavor elsewhere apart from e-cigarettes? That you can influence your peers in different ways other than to smoke or to do cannabis. And these are the things we need to be teaching our children from home, in schools, in different programs that we watch. There's a friend of mine, he complained that his child was having nightmares. But this child doesn't watch any other thing than Cartoon Network. So I told him, go and sit down with this child and watch the Cartoon Network with him. He came and said, there are a lot of obscenities in Cartoon Network. There are a lot of talks about drugs. And then there is a lot of violence. And I said, yes, that is what is causing the nightmares. So we subject our children to a lot of nightmares by not, and we want other people to tell our children in schools what not to do, and we are not doing something at home. These are things I think can change our perception. These are programs by United States. For United States, we need to create our programs for Brazil and for Nigeria. And we have the capacity to do that. They are not more intelligent than we are, but we need to face our problems ourselves. I think I would stop here. Thank you very much.
Obrigada.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And now let's listen to Dr. Guilherme. I would like to tell you that I completely agree with you. We have to monitor our children more as a society, and we have to hold our governments accountable. We have many shortcomings, but we have good professionals, we have good people, so we can make this change. And I agree, we have to adapt programs to our regions. Brazil is a very big country. We have to adapt things to every region. The same protocol that may work here in São Paulo may not work for the population in the north, in the Amazon, or in the south. So we really have to talk about living territories within our countries, because we come from very diverse countries, right? So thank you very much for your talk. Good morning. My name is Guilherme Franco. I am a public prosecutor. In my career in the public prosecution, I've been to many cities, I've been to many towns. I am passionate about cities, towns, urban environments. Like Nigeria, Brazil has about 200 million inhabitants. In Brazil, and almost 85% of the Brazilian population is living in cities. 85% of all this population is living in cities. So this has a number of consequences. There's an increase in supply, an increase in demand, and everything that this tobacco industry thing is happening around us. We have a national tobacco policy. It's very well designed. It's one of the world's best policies, and we were actually pioneers in that. Brazil was a pioneer in the convention it was one of the leading countries, but we have our fake laws as well, Professor. Our fake law says that, for example, beer is not alcohol, for example. So it's a lie again, right? It's that chorus, the choir that keeps saying that it's a lie. It's a Brazilian thing for dancing. But anyway, we have 5,570 cities in Brazil. Brazil is as big as some continents, but we can make our cities healthier with the right interventions. When we talk about human rights, there's no human right that's more important than the right to life. And there's no life without health. And there's no health without changes in lifestyle. We have to change our lifestyle. We have to change our mindsets. We have the right to the prevention of drug use. That's a right. That's a human right. The state is responsible and must be held accountable for that. And we cannot take one step back. We cannot afford to take one single step back in our anti-tobacco policy. It is against the Constitution. It is illegal and it's immoral. It's insane from the epidemiological point of view. Going back or going flexible now is it's unacceptable. It's immoral to revoke this resolution that bans e-cigarettes in the country. There's big pressure to revoke this law, but it's unacceptable to revoke it. And there are the invisible hands of the cannabis, tobacco, and alcohol. And our country must preserve its brains, its free brains. This is one of the sustainable development goals of the UN. Building a protected society, a society protected from the use of licit and illicit drugs and the chemical dependency. This is what Dr. Quirino talked about yesterday in his opening session. This is the situation of our African brothers. And this is not rhetoric. I have African DNA, and probably from Nigeria or Ghana, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm proud to say that. I'm very proud to say that. I'm proud of my West African DNA. And we have this historical debt to Africa because the first drug dealers of the modern world were the Brazilians and the Portuguese. We would send sugarcane brandy to Africa and tobacco leaves to Africa, and they sent us African people as slaves. So we have this long-standing historical debt to the African continent. Millions of families were destroyed in the African continent by this illegal trade, or this trade promoted by the Europeans and the Brazilians. Today, Africa struggles to feed their people and plant food and not plant tobacco. Tobacco is not food. And that's also an environmental problem because for every 15 packs of cigarettes, a tree has to be chopped down. In Brazil, the situation is the same. Our brothers that are at least 6,000 family farmers with using slave work to plant tobacco in Brazil. We still have slave-like conditions in tobacco plantations. It's unacceptable. It's the 21st century, right? We have the initiatives of the Chart Convention for Tobacco Prevention, but still, manufacturers are making big money out of that, and they're saying that vapes are there only to help adults quit. Vaping is a healthier way of smoking, and that's a lie again. It smells like lie, and it has flavors of lie. Chocolate, vanilla, mango, passion fruit, acai berry, even lollipop flavored. Believe it or not. And I'm not the one saying that. It's the convention chart. So since the manufacturers have the tobacco industry has always used lies, why would it be any different with e-cigarettes? Regular cigarettes have always used fake claims and lies to promote themselves. And what they want is to enslave our brains, and they keep coming up with new ideas to enslave us and enslave our brains. Even the pharmaceutical company says that cannabis is part of the future. Tobacco giants and pharmaceutical companies, the BAB and BAT, the BAT, formerly known in Brazil as Souza Cruz, but it's the BAT, British American Tobacco. It's a big company that also says that cannabis and vapes are the future. At the bottom there, you see this hoodie, this sweatshirt with a little hose associated with e-vapes. If Brazil ever legalizes that, on the next day, our streets and our stores will be packed with these things, and it will be impossible for parents, for teachers, for managers to control that, and we will never really know what's inside the vape. It's impossible to regulate. We cannot control the substances that they smoke. They don't smoke only nicotine anymore. Nicotine alone is harmful enough, right? But we cannot control what they will put there. So we have to think global but act local to build. At the bottom, look at the bottom there. We have a turnstile. A turnstile does not enable anyone to go back. A ratchet. So top priorities. Again, it takes a village to raise a child. So an entire village to take care of a child. We have to keep that in mind. We must not lose that perspective. Because if we forget that, we will have like the invisible triggers for our homeless people, for example, because they were children one day. This is our perspective. Communities with children, boys and girls, playing leading roles and playing in public spaces free of any substance, any psychoactive substance. Every child and every teenager has the right to be educated in their own family and, in exceptional occasions, in foster families, in environments that ensure whole their full development. Municipalities, the cities also have their own responsibilities. Municipalities, cities like São Paulo, Campinas, Iguape, Lagos. This is the so legislation that may ban the consumption and the setup of new stores that sell tobacco, e-cigarettes, hookahs, and away from schools, away from from playgrounds, public squares, because either the cities are for the children or they are not for the children, and then they will oppress children. And they will oppress not only the children, but the elderly, the sick. But then this was not approved by the city council. But still, so Brazil has over 5,000 cities, over 5,000 municipalities, and I want us to join forces to say no to the lies of the tobacco industry, to the alcohol industry, and we have to do this together. This is a painting by Debray, a French painter who fell in love with Brazil in the 19th century and painted scenes of the Brazilian Empire. These are, again, our brothers as slaves in chains in a tobacco shop. Actually, back then, they would inhale tobacco. And it's going trendy again. Believe it or not, snuff is again, tobacco is again being used as it was in the 19th century. But nicotine will always be nicotine, tobacco will always be tobacco, and e-cigarettes will always be cigarettes. We have to direct our efforts to fighting that and to ensuring the rights of our children and teenagers to a healthy, drug-free life. This scene today, even though it's from the 19th century, it still occurs out there. And instead of tobacco shops, we have the vapes. So we cannot take one step back. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Guilherme. I would like to ask if you have any doubts and want to make any comments, feel free, because we are already running under schedule. Good morning. I'm Glauber Sargent. I am from Santa state of Pará, and I work with schools. And when I work with families, one day I gave a lecture to parents, and one of the mothers started to monitor her son's cell phone, and drug dealers were telling her 14-year-old son saying that e-cigarettes was an alternative for children. What caught her attention was the fact that they said they were going to mix e-cigarettes with other things. You said that they mix THC in it, but what are the other substances that can be mixed to vapes? Because they wanted children to become addicted faster. So what are the substances that can be included in e-cigarettes? It's a major concern because e-cigarettes are cocktails. Dr. Sandra, there's propylene and glycol, and it generates substance that is formaldehyde, which increases the likelihood of becoming dependent. So huge doses of nicotine are already enough, but those devices, they are done to smoke other things. We know there's synthetic marijuana, there's cannabidiol, but drug dealers, they are very creative. So we have to be very attentive. There must be inspection. So we have to see where smuggling takes places and try and fight it. There was a course called Transport at the Federal University of Catarina, and they talked about new psychoactive substances. Brazil is a country that in which it is increasing the number of psychoactive substances. So we have to be alert and pay attention to what's going on. If you have any doubts, we are going to be here all day long, and so we have to wrap up our panel. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I would, if you could stay like 10, 15 minutes over there, it would be good because people would be able to talk to you and ask questions. So so I'm going to open up the next panel. Can you imagine if we are half an hour late in each panel? In the end of the day, it's going to be 3 hours. So I have to control. Okay. So is everything all right with our international speaker? We're going to have a very important lecture now. And my friend Ronaldo helped me out. He's the president of MADSI, Brazil. So if you want to talk to the previous panelists, you can go outside. So we have a lecture about alcohol and other drugs, making the right choice, a survivor's perspective. And we are going to address alcohol and traffic. I don't speak very good English, so what is Alex Ote is the president of Mothers Against Drunk Driving in the U.S., and she is an advocate. She is an influencer, and she received a prize as an activist in 2015 due to her efforts to approve a legislation to avoid drunk driving. Where is Ronaldo? Ronaldo is going to stay here because Alex is live in the link, and so he's gonna be here to help us out in case we have any problems. Alex, are you all right? Audience, did you get your headsets? Ronaldo, the floor is yours.
Good morning, and thank you so much for joining this important session. My name is Alex Sadi, and I'm the National President of Mothers Against Drunk Driving in the U.S. I appreciate Mad Brazil and the Free Mind organization for inviting me here to speak with you today, even if only virtually. Today's presentation is about alcohol and other drugs, making the right choice, a survivor's perspective. I will share with you a little about what MAD is and our mission, more about myself and how I got here, and why it is so important that we are all here today, and how you can help. Mothers Against Drunk Driving is a nonprofit organization founded in 1980 by a mother who lost her daughter in a drunk driving crash. Miss Candy Leitner was looking for a way to channel her grief after losing her 13-year-old daughter, Carrie. She got together with a group of others who had been impacted by drunk driving, whether by the loss of a loved one or an injury that they suffered themselves. Miss Leitner carried her daughter's photo around the state of California, working to share her daughter's story to change people's minds about the acceptability of driving under the influence of alcohol. It was important for the public to understand what happened to Carrie at the hands of a repeat DUI offender, to find a way to prevent it from happening to others. In the 1980s, MAD popularized the concept of designating a non-drinking driver and reminded the world that crashes caused by drunken drug driving are not accidents. They're not mistakes. It is a choice to drink and drive. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, victims, volunteers, and supporters from across the nation joined forces to work together toward a time when this wouldn't happen to anyone else. And Mothers Against Drunk Driving became a household name across the United States, but now also in Brazil and Canada. The same drive and passion that brought the original founders and volunteers together is what drives us today. Our mission at MAD, what we live by and dedicate all our efforts in working towards, is to end drunk driving, help fight drug driving, support the victims of these violent crimes, and prevent underage drinking. We do believe that each of these things are possible, and we will continue to show up, to work, and to fight until it comes true. We believe that we will see a day when there is a last victim of drunk driving, because there has to be. Drinking and driving is a 100% preventable crime, a 100% preventable choice with dire consequences for everyone involved. We have to end it. Many people who get involved with causes like this didn't do so just because they wanted to help. Some people do, but not all of us. A lot of us got involved because we don't have a choice. We weren't given a choice. And my story is no different. I got involved with MAD because someone else made a choice and left me to live with the consequences. Almost 12 years ago, it'll be 12 years in about 2 weeks, I came to MAD for the same reason a lot of people do. I was run over by a drunk driver when I was 13 years old. My offender wasn't driving a car. He was driving a 17-foot fast boat at more than 60 miles per hour on a lake in Danville, Kentucky, where my dad lives. I remember pieces of the day, but most of what I know comes from my family who witnessed the crash and the injuries I still live with to this day. On July 2nd of 2010, I was sitting still on a jet ski behind my dad's house, waiting for my mom and 7-year-old brother to dock our boat for the day. It was truly nothing out of the ordinary. I had been on the water for years, had my boating license for years. It was a normal summer day. When I saw a 17-foot bass boat speeding under a nearby bridge, I did what I had been trained to do. I gave my mom a thumbs up to let her know I saw him coming and I wasn't going to move. When you get your boating license in the US, they teach you that if a boat's coming towards you, don't move and try and anticipate where they're going to go. Just stay where you are and wait for them to pass you. I stayed still and I waited. The boat was headed towards my mom and my brother. My mom screamed. The boat's driver banked it to the left and never straightened up, crashing into me at more than 60 miles per hour. The impact threw me off the jet ski. I landed face down in the water. The boat went up over the jet ski and landed on top of my body before it sunk. When the trauma helicopter airlifted me from the lake, my mom, brother, and my dad had heard the crash from our garage, did not expect to see me alive again. In fact, there's not a doctor who can explain how I survived, because medically, I shouldn't have, and I've asked everyone that I've ever met. I spent 3.5 minutes face down in the water. I sustained a traumatic brain injury, classified as shaken baby syndrome, where my brain shook inside my head and started bleeding in 4 places and they couldn't make it stop. The impact broke my neck, my collarbone, and my jaw, which is now made up of metal plates. It lacerated my liver and shattered both of my femurs. When I was thrown off the jet ski, I was holding on so tightly with my legs, I don't remember, but presumably because I was scared, that when I was thrown off, I took the handlebars with me. If you've seen or been around a jet ski, you know it's all one piece, and this shouldn't have been possible. I now have metal rods in place of bone in both my thighs. When the boat landed on my body, the propeller landed on my legs. My left leg was under the water just enough that it only required stitches, but my right leg was severed below the knee. Over the next 7 days, I underwent 8 emergency surgeries. I spent a week in a coma and nearly a month in the ICU before entering a rehab facility, where I had to relearn how to read, write, and transfer myself in and out of a wheelchair. After 3 months in a wheelchair, my prosthetic arrived. Despite doctors' doubts and my own debilitating fear of falling, I learned to walk again. But the woman that little girl would have grown up to be was gone, and the life she would have had was over. For nearly a decade, I underwent at least 1 surgery a year on my jaw just to keep my teeth in. The man who ran me over had multiple prior DUI offenses. 2.5 hours after the crash, his BAC was almost 3 times the legal limit for driving. Months later, as I sat in a wheelchair in a courtroom, the man who changed my life forever denied any wrongdoing. Drunk driving laws in Kentucky did not fully apply to boaters under the influence at the time, and there were far too many factors making this case more difficult. Even though he hit me with a boat instead of a car, he nearly killed me all the same. Despite his long history of DUIs, my offender got a slap on the wrist for trying to kill me, a small $250 fine. I'm told that he has received multiple DUIs since. I've been asked a lot over the years if I could go back and do that night over, would I do anything differently? And the answer is no. I didn't do anything wrong. The only thing that would have changed that crash is if he hadn't been drunk. Boating under the influence is driving under the influence. And while I'm confident that he didn't set out that day with the intention of trying to kill me, he made a series of choices that led to my very near death. Other people watched and made the choice not to stop him. I knew soon after my crash that I wanted to be the last little girl this would ever happen to. Sadly, I know almost 12 years later that I wasn't. In life, a lot of things come down to choices. Choices we make for ourselves and choices that others make for us. The man who ran me over made a choice that day, and I will always live with the consequences of his choice. But I got to make a choice too. My choice was to live each day of my new life to stop what happened to me from ever happening to anyone else. That's why I'm here today. Despite Mad's efforts and the courage of victims and survivors to bare their heart and share their stories over and over again, things have changed, but it's not over yet. Since MAD's founding in 1980, drunk driving deaths in the United States have been reduced by more than half. And I'm confident that MAD Brazil and MAD Canada are having a similar impact. Even so, every year in the United States, more than 10,000 people are killed as a result of drunk driving, and more than 300,000 are injured every year. One death or injury caused by drunk driving would be too many. But take a moment to think about how many people are actually impacted when one person is involved in a crash. In my crash, I was the only person run over, but it didn't affect just me. The crash and the aftermath of it impacted my family, my mom and brother who watched the crash, my dad who heard it, my friends, my coworkers, and my now husband. The ripple effect is huge. Imagine how many people are impacted when one person is killed or injured because of drunk driving. Now, multiply that by 310,000 every year. Every 2 minutes in the United States, someone is injured in a drunk driving crash. Every 51 minutes, someone is killed. Alcohol is still the leading killer on American roads. On average, 2 out of 3 people will be impacted by drunk driving in their lifetime in some way. What if that was you? What if it happened to someone you loved? We have to bring an end to it before it happens to you too. But as we know, while drunk driving is still the leading killer on America's roads, it's not just about alcohol anymore. And it's not just about doing the things you know you shouldn't be doing. Drug driving can come from legal substances too. Prescriptions given to you by a doctor or over-the-counter medication. Marijuana and illicit drugs can affect you too, especially when combined with alcohol. From what I've read, Brazil's laws against drunk driving are stricter than they are in the US, and I'm so thankful for that. But we still have a long way to go. As I said before, it comes down to choices and planning ahead. All of this, whether it is driving under the influence of alcohol or other drugs, legal or otherwise, could be prevented by making a plan for how you're going to get to your next destination safely before consuming. Just as the problem is not limited to alcohol, it's not limited to cars either. My crash happened because someone was driving a boat while under the influence of alcohol. I hear every day of stories where someone was driving a motorcycle, an off-road vehicle, or something else under the influence of alcohol or other drugs. And the tragic and devastating effects are the same. Just because it may not have 4 tires and a steering wheel does not mean that it is safe to operate when you are impaired. Please keep this in mind this summer and year-round, as we have entered the 100 deadliest days of the year. We know that the time between Memorial Day in the US and Labor Day, which is about end of May to mid-September, are the 100 deadliest days of the year, when the most people die on our roadways for all different reasons, but especially because of drunk driving. This is going to be a bad time around the world for driving while impaired, and we have to make sure that people stay safe. It is your responsibility to make sure that you are safe to operate a car, a boat, or whatever else it may be before you plan to leave where you are. Always plan ahead. So, now that I've told you about the problem, I'd like to tell you how we plan to fix it. First, we know at MAD that our power is in our stories. It's very easy for lawmakers, community members, and more to look at statistics or numbers on a piece of paper and think that it's not that big of a deal, or it's easy for them to ignore this problem. It is very hard when someone is looking you in the eye and telling you what has happened to them, and that you have the power to help them and to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. This is why we know that victims and survivors having the courage to share their story is the only way we will accomplish our mission. There are several other things that we're doing to help do that too. As a part of MAD's campaign to eliminate drunk driving, we advocate for high visibility law enforcement. We know that here in the US, law enforcement is our first line of defense against drunk driving and other hazardous driving behaviors. If people believe they're going to get caught, they're less likely to make the wrong choice. And we see this all the time. You know, there are states where the DUI laws are tougher than others. Utah, for example, has a lower BAC, blood alcohol concentration legal limit than other states in our country. And we see every day that in states where people believe that they are going to get caught and they believe that they are going to get in trouble, they're less likely to make the wrong choice, even before they ever get in trouble the first time, just because they know that they're going to. And so we do advocate for law enforcement being out there and just reminding people why it's so important to stay safe. We advocate for all offender ignition interlock laws in every state. I'm not sure if you have ignition interlock devices in Brazil, so I'll give you a brief description. An ignition interlock is a device about the size of a smartphone. It's about this big, similar to a breathalyzer. And what a breathalyzer does is when you blow into it, it will tell a person's blood alcohol concentration. So an ignition interlock, similar to a breathalyzer, is put into the car of repeat DUI offenders as a part of their sentence. It is wired into the car, so it's connected in that way. And it's put in someone's car as a part of their sentence. So generally, when people are convicted of DUI in the United States, their license may be suspended. But we know that a lot of people continue to drive on a suspended license, and some even continue to drive drunk on a suspended license. Our goal is to reduce drunk driving deaths and injuries. And so we wanted to find a way to do that even when people are getting their driving privileges revoked. And so the way that ignition interlocks work is instead of getting someone's license suspended, they get an ignition interlock device put in their car. This enables them to still drive to work and take care of their families and be a part of the community, but not to do so in a way that is unsafe or if they're impaired. The driver who has an ignition interlock in their car must blow into the device and get a BAC reading for their car to start. If the device detects alcohol over a certain preset limit, the car just won't start. If the car does start and doesn't detect that alcohol limit, it will have the person retest every once in a while just to ensure that they aren't drinking while they're operating their vehicle. But every single time a person gets in the car and goes to start it, they have to blow into this device to ensure that they are safe to operate the vehicle and not under the influence of alcohol. Currently, 23 states plus Washington, D.C. have all offender ignition interlock laws. One limitation of ignition interlocks is that it does only apply to alcohol. So there is no solution to drugged driving as a part of this. However, this is something that we still absolutely advocate for because we believe it's another tool to help us prevent drunk driving injuries and deaths. And so it's something we advocate for in every state. We also advocate for advanced vehicle technology, and we are accomplishing this. We know that the technology needed to stop drunk driving once and for all is out there, and we need it now. In November of last year, a federal bill was signed to put drunk driving prevention technology in all new cars. This technology could be on new cars as early as model year 2027. And since I just explained ignition interlocks, I want to make it clear that this technology does not include ignition interlocks. And the reason for that being is our goal is not to inconvenience drivers who are doing the right thing and making the right choice. We don't want people who are not under the influence to have to deal with something else when they get in their car. And so the technology has not been chosen yet. The federal government has 3 years to look at all of the available options and pick one that they believe is best to mandate in all new cars. We don't know what that technology is going to be yet. But what we do know is that all of the technology being considered is entirely passive. So the drunk or otherwise impaired driver will get in their car and it either won't start, won't move, or will otherwise disable the vehicle once it detects signs of impairment. The sober driver will get in their car and never even know it's there. They won't have to do anything. So we get asked a lot if this technology means ignition interlock. And since I just explained that, that's one thing I wanted to clarify. We know that technology is out there that can be put as standard equipment in new cars to prevent drunk driving and to make sure that people are safe on the roadway. And so this is something that we're super excited about. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety says that once this technology is in all new cars, it could save an estimated 9,400 lives every year and countless injuries. As I said earlier, right now, every year, more than 10,000 people are being killed by drunk driving. Once this technology is in all new cars, it could essentially eliminate drunk driving in the US. I always knew that I would fight for the rest of my life to see a day when there is a last little girl and a last person impacted by this 100% preventable crime. But I never believed that that would happen in my lifetime. I always said I would fight forever for it, but I believed it would happen for my grandkids or their grandkids. Now I believe that it may happen now. I do believe that we will see a day when there are no more victims of drunk driving on the roads in the US in my lifetime. And I think that it's so important that we make sure this is everywhere. It's so important to make sure that we eradicate and eliminate the crime and the choice of drunk driving. But this technology isn't just a potential solution for drunk driving. Some of the technologies being considered would be able to detect things like drugged driving, which, like I said, currently ignition interlocks cannot. This technology may be able to do that. Also looks for drowsy driving, distracted driving, and more. Every day that they wait to get these kinds of options on cars, more people will be injured and killed by this 100% preventable crime. And so we can't wait. We are going to continue everywhere to advocate for advanced technology solutions to help us put an end to this. I do know that no matter what laws we pass, no matter what technology becomes available, no matter how much we tell our stories and kick and scream, drinking and driving is a choice. And there are always going to be people who make that choice no matter what we do. They will find ways around the technology. They will find ways around the laws. They've always have. And that is why we also advocate for public awareness of the problem and support on how to fix it. We advocate for advanced research to help us truly understand the problem of drugged driving and how we can fix it as well. So much of drugged driving is up and coming in a way, and it's new, and we just don't know. We don't know the why. We don't necessarily know how to stop it other than to encourage people to plan ahead. And so we advocate for more research and more information that helps us learn about this problem and how we can save more lives and prevent more injuries. Everyone has a responsibility to help us eliminate drunk driving and drug driving. It comes down to all of us. Those of us who would never make this choice, those of us who have not been impacted, it's all of our responsibility to be a part of the solution. Our underage drinking prevention programs rely heavily on the willingness to have a conversation. In the United States, the legal drinking age is 21 years old. There's a lot of research supporting why that age was chosen, and MAD was a part of instituting that legal drinking age across the country in the 80s and 90s. There's a lot of research behind it, which I won't go into today, but our goal in preventing underage drinking is to protect the developing brain and to ensure that students have all the tools to make the right choices. Our Power of Parents program focuses on reminding parents that they are the leading influence on teenagers' decisions about drinking. And it is up to parents and trusted adults to have these important conversations. We hear from parents a lot that the reason they don't initiate these conversations with their teens or with their students is because they don't think they're going to listen. But research shows that parents and trusted adults truly are the leading influence on their teenagers' decisions to drink. And a lot of teenagers that make the choice to drink or to consume drugs before 21 do so because no one ever talked to them about it. No one ever told them the reasons for why you shouldn't. People just told them not to. And so it's so important, and we absolutely encourage parents and trusted adults to be willing to have the conversation with teens and students, to be willing to talk to them about the why, not just don't do it, but why it's important to protect yourself and to protect those around you. The idea behind this program is to get your kids talking to you about what they think about drugs and alcohol. Give them a platform to ask you questions. Make sure they're comfortable talking to you and sharing concerns about friends or their drinking behaviors. Make it a place where they are comfortable coming to you and saying they may not understand, or they may have been pressured or thought about it, because that's the place where you're going to be able to reach them. A lot of parents think, once they're in middle school, high school, what's the point of having the conversation anymore? They're grown in a lot of ways. But that's not true. We know that it's never too early to start having these conversations with students about making the right choices and being able to say whether or not you're comfortable. It's important to have these conversations with elementary and middle school to say, if you were in a situation with a friend's parent or with a friend or whoever that may be, and you don't feel comfortable, speak up. It's never too early to have that conversation, but it's also never too late either. If you have a student in later high school, early college, it is never too late to start having the conversation if you haven't had it already. Give them a place that they feel comfortable talking, asking questions, and sharing with you some of their concerns and perspectives. If you give them an avenue to share with you, you will have a lot better chance of getting through to them. And so we just encourage parents to find the time to start these conversations, whether it's driving to school, at the dinner table. There are opportunities to get through to your kids and to have conversations that will impact their futures and the rest of their lives. And so we encourage you to have these conversations. Our Power of Youth programs are also related to our underage drinking programs and underage drinking prevention. The Power of Youth program is all about reminding students that the choices they make now are affecting their brains, their development, and their futures. Abstaining from consuming alcohol or other drugs until a person is of legal age is not only important because it's the law. There is so much research and so much information supporting why it's important to abstain from alcohol or other drugs until you're of legal age. In the US, that's 21. I know it's different in other places, but there's so much research supporting that. One thing that we talk to parents about a lot is whatever level your child drinks at when they live at your home, when they leave your home, it's going to go up a level. So if you allow your child to drink on special occasions in your home, when they leave your home, they may drink every weekend. If you let your child drink every weekend when they're at home, they may leave your home and drink every day. And so we know that the earlier a person starts drinking, the more likely they are to suffer from alcohol dependence or to become a drunk driver later in life. And so it's important for you to be aware of these things, to have these conversations, but it's also important for your teen or child to know that they do have the power to make the right choices, and that the choices they're making now aren't limited to their childhood or to when they're in school. The choices they're making now do have an impact and will have an impact on their future. And so the Power of Youth program is just another way of reinforcing this. We know that teens have more power than they think when it comes to saying no to alcohol and other drugs. The Power of Youth program provides research-based information on the dangers of consuming alcohol and other drugs. It also provides information and resources on resisting negative peer pressure and empowering teens to take the first step and be a positive influence on their friends. We also want to encourage teens and young adults that while negative peer pressure is a real thing, positive peer pressure is too. If teens are willing to stand up for what they know is right, they will help their friends and those around them make the right choices too. We know that negative peer pressure affects a lot of students when people are telling them the bad thing to do and they may feel like they have to be on the in crowd. We do also know that while teens may think everyone is drinking, the numbers of people that are drinking before legal drinking age are actually very low. But we also know that teens have the power to have a positive influence on those around them just by making the right choices, by explaining to their friends why they believe it's important to make the right choices and what they can do to make an impact. Now that I've told you about the problem and the things that we are trying to do to solve it, I'd like to talk to you about the ways that you can help today, tomorrow, and in the future. Drunk and drug driving, underage drinking, and other problems related to this are problems that will take all of us to solve. Our governments, our law enforcement, our schools, community groups, all of our communities, and you. The easiest and fastest way to get involved in this mission is to raise awareness. Tell the people around you what you've learned today and at this event entirely. Remind people that they have the power to make better choices for their future and those of their loved ones. Remind people that their choices, if they make the wrong one, do have consequences. And oftentimes those consequences are for other innocent people. But remind those around you that it is their choice to make, and they are able to make the right choice every time. For more specific ways on how to get involved, please reach out to MAD Brazil. We have lots of ways to get involved with different MAD chapters in the US, and I know MAD Brazil does too. They will help you to identify local needs and the best way for you to use your unique skills and your unique story to help protect your community. If your plans include alcohol, plan ahead for a safe way home. Whether that's public transportation or a non-drinking friend or family member, if you know a friend is not safe to drive, take the keys. They may be mad at you. I'm sure they will be mad at you. But I promise you that you would much rather have a friend or loved one be upset with you for the night for a couple hours than to lose them and know you could have stopped it. Take responsibility for the choices you make to keep yourself safe, and take responsibility for the choices of those around you too. If you see something, say something. Make sure that people are safe. You'll know if you see someone getting into the car and they aren't safe to drive it, intervene. We all have the power to be a positive influence and to do the right thing. We all have a role in helping us to create a world when there will be no more victims of drug driving. And it starts with the choices that you make today. Thank you so much for allowing me to join you today. I really do encourage you to reach out to Mad Brazil and see if there's a way for you to get involved. My email is on the bottom of the screen if you have any questions for me at all, or if there's any way that I can help you in the future. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, for being here, and for allowing me to join you. Thank you.
Hi, Alex. This is Ronaldo. Unfortunately, we cannot see each other, but I can see you. You're looking good. And I'm very proud to be a madman, I would say that. And I hope we can introduce in Brazil the same work you did in America and in Canada. And really, thank you very much for being with us. Okay?
Thank you so much for having me and for everything you do for your community. And I'm excited to see new people involved.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alex. Bye-bye. Bom dia. É prazer muito grande. Meu nome é
Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Ronaldo Risetto. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I am responsible in Brazil for the Brazilian chapter of MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Mães contra os motoristas bêbados. Mothers Against Drunk Driving. It was an initiative. The problem is not with the drunk drivers. The problem is also the alcohol. And we've been in Brazil for 2 years. We've been doing this work slowly. We came here with big plans, but then the pandemic broke out, and of course, things became slower. But we're making progress. We have strong support from the federal government, which helps us a lot. We've received a lot of support from the federal administration. We have many people supporting us, people that do not even, they may not even notice how much they help us, people from DEAD, UNIAD, Somos, many associations, many organizations that help us. MAD Brazil, well, you just heard Alex. It's very touching. You know exactly what the program is. She just described it to us. We are introducing some prevention programs in Brazil, MAD Mais and MAD Jovens, and we also have a program for victim support, victim support service. We have some experience in that already, but we're still taking baby steps, and we're still at early stages. I'm here today to talk to you and to try and eliminate early consumption of alcohol and drugs. We want a new decade of safe traffic. We want sober drivers, but to do that, we have to empower our young. We have to educate our young and prevent them from starting to drink before the right time. There's no right time to start abusing any substance, but at least not before the age of 18, which is even illegal in Brazil. And I guess that was it. I know you have a busy day ahead. So again, MAD Brazil, it's madbrazil.org. Make sure you check out our website, maddbrazil with an s.org. Make sure you check us out. Find us on Instagram, on Facebook, follow us, like us, make yourselves familiar with our projects, spread the word, and keep in mind that you are also responsible. There's no moderate drinking, there's no safe levels for you to drink and drive. A can of beer is going to change your perception, it's going to change your skill, not acceptable. The problem is not drunk driving, the problem is actually having like a glass of beer and driving. Paho has some research on that showing that, car accidents are the leading cause of deaths of young between 19 to 25 years old. There's data, and data from the Brazilian Ministry of Health confirms that from 18 to 24, the leading cause of death of young between 18 to 24 is car accidents. So if we know that 90 people died in car accidents in this country. 90 people die every day. And 40% of this number is because of the use of alcohol or other drugs. Other drugs is very comprehensive. Antidepressants, anxiolytics, and all kinds of substances. So we have to join forces because together we're stronger, together we can accomplish more. So please keep that in mind. That was my message for you today. Thank you very, very much. And again, make sure you visit our website and make it worth the effort. I firmly believe in our mission. I firmly believe in the mission of Mad Brazil. Our mission is to eliminate all deaths caused by drunk driving or driving under the influence of other substances. I count on your support. Thank you very much. Fellas, moving on with our program. Remember that we're being streamed live on YouTube, both in Portuguese and in English. We're being streamed to 35 countries, to the national chapters. Hello, my friends from abroad. So, guys, don't forget to share what we're doing here on your social media. Share with your friends. Again, like Alex said, spread the word. Share it. Hashtag Free Mind. Hashtag Spirit Free Mind. Also, don't forget to join the national chapter. You received the form, fill it out, join us. There are many benefits. It's free of charge. And let's move on to our next panel. We have prepared an amazing panel, Psychiatry of Development and its contribution for the prevention of alcohol and other drugs. So let's invite Dr. Sabrina Presma to the floor. Dr. Sabrina. Warm hands for Dr. Sabrina. Big round of applause. Also, let's give it up for Dr. Renata Azevedo. Dr. Renata, please. Also, Dr. Ana Cecilia Marques, a dear, trusted partner of ours. She's been working with us ever since 2012. Dr. Anna. And also my dear friend, Dr. Alessandra Deal, who is here to represent the Brazilian Association for the Study of Alcohol and Other Drugs. Dr. Alexandra, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Sabrina is going to moderate this panel for us. Thank God we are just, we're not running late, we're just on schedule. And I hope you can enjoy the next session. I think that today's program is really amazing. I hope you can all learn something from it.